Welcome to this deep dive. Today, we are taking two compelling, almost parabolic sources that focus entirely on the philosophy of action. We're not just talking motivational posters here. We are really digging into the fundamental mechanics of, well, moving forward in life.
Yeah, and our mission really is to unpack two essential truths these narratives deliver. First, what happens when you decide to invest freely into the world, like a kind of long-term social capital? And second, what happens when you must take a risk? Step into the unknown, committing to a goal where the path ahead is, well, completely invisible.
Right, so we're essentially tackling those internal conflicts that can lead to stagnation. On one hand, there's that fear of giving without getting paid back right away. And on the other, that paralyzing fear of starting something big without a perfect, guaranteed roadmap.
Exactly. We are analyzing the difference between waiting for certainty and actively creating it. These are sources that frame these huge philosophical questions through really simple, accessible stories. They demand that we rethink our sort of transactional view of effort and reward.
Okay, let's unpack this then. Starting with the story of giving, let's talk about Omar. He ran a simple tea stall in the sun-dusted village of Barka. It was nestled quietly between olive groves.
And Omar's setup is critical here. He wasn't wealthy, not at all. He was just consistent. The source really emphasizes his daily, patient ritual of brewing cardamom tea. His wealth, you could say, lay not in currency, but in that routine and quiet observance.
And part of that routine included this profound, non-negotiable act. Every evening, he left 1 cup of steaming free tea outside his stall. This wasn't some PR stunt. It was specific, small, repeatable kindness, aimed at anyone who passed by with an empty hand.
And the philosophy behind that is what matters. The sources detail how Hafi, the blacksmith, who was much more pragmatic, I challenged him directly. He asked, you gain nothing from it, why the waste? Which is basically the voice of modern economics, right? Demanding immediate ROI.
Exactly. And Omar's reply is, I think, the first core insight of this deep dive. He said, if warmth returns to me one day, I'd like to know I once sent it into the world. He wasn't tracking debts, he wasn't calculating his social ledger or anything. He was just setting a system in motion, totally independent of his own personal benefit.
That is so crucial. Because true kindness, the kind that becomes a seed, like the source says, it's tested when there's absolutely zero expectation of immediate or guaranteed return. It requires what we might call spiritual long-termism. Yeah.
Well, the system was definitely tested.
Yeah.
The sources fast forward years later, things changed, a severe drought hit the village, and then a devastating fire tore through the market. It completely erased Omar's stall and everything he owned.
Yeah, he went from humble contentment to being utterly destitute, sleeping under a fig tree, cradling memory like an old friend, as the source puts it poetically.
Wow. And what's fascinating here is the absolute nature of the loss and also that extended time lag. The kindness didn't prevent the disaster, did it? Nor did the reward just magically appear to save him right away.
Not at all. It arrived only when Omar was at his absolute lowest, his most vulnerable point.
That delay, that's the key, isn't it? If kindness really were just a ledger, the reward should have been instant, or at least predictable. But instead, years later, this stranger arrives. A young man with a scar under his eye. He walks straight to the fig tree, recognizes Omar immediately.
And it turns out he had passed through that village years before as a lost, starving boy. And he'd received that free cup of tea. He actually called it the first kindness I ever knew. Think about the weight of that.
Incredible. And the value of the gift was exponential precisely because it was non-transactional, because it was foundational to the receiver's life at that moment.
Exactly. And this young man, he didn't just offer a quick handout or some pity money. He motioned to his companions he wasn't alone, and they rebuilt Omar a new stall. Better. Stronger than the old one, right there on the ashes.
So it wasn't just survival, it was full-on restoration, rebuilding.
Right. And the core insight, the philosophical punchline, if you will, came when Omar asked, why? Why this massive act of generosity? Now, the young man explained, karma is not a ledger, it's a seed. You don't just cash in a ledger on demand. You wait for a seed to grow slowly into your life.
So if we look at this practically, especially for you, the listener, the point seems to be that when you give consistently, selflessly, you're actually creating advocates, you're building this durable social capital that activates later, maybe when you need resources or connections or loyalty the most.
Yeah, Omar didn't get his money back, did he? He gained an entire construction crew and presumably a very devoted customer base decades later. It's a different kind of return.
It really suggests that consistency in small, non-transactional kindness might be a better long-term community strategy than, say, massive, flashy one-time donations.
It builds that quiet, enduring relational debt, you could say, and it pays off when the purely transactional world might have abandoned you.
Okay, so we've established that planting a seed that sustains action of giving is essential, but planting is only the first part. What happens when you need to take action into the unknown, towards some massive goal that requires real forward momentum?
Well, that moves us perfectly into the second source, which confronts that ultimate unknown, staring at a gap and deciding to move anyway. We shift now from the philosophy of giving to the philosophy of movement itself, action.
Right, and this is where it gets really interesting for anyone maybe facing a career change or a big project or a creative endeavor. That feeling of, where do I even start? The scenario is simple. A traveler reached a broken bridge. The destination. Clear, full of promise on the far side. But between them, just empty, terrifying space.
And the vastness of that gap, it's such a potent metaphor for overwhelming goals, isn't it?
Yeah.
Starting a company, writing a book, mastering some complex skill. The sheer distance from where you are to the finish line, it leads to what some call paralysis by analysis. You just freeze.
And that's exactly what happens to most people who arrive at that gap, according to the source. They turn back. They rationalize their fear. It's too far, the risk is too high, the chance of failure is certain. They demand to see the whole finished bridge before taking even one step.
But this traveler was different. The source explains that instead of listening to that overwhelming logical fear, they heard this inner voice, quiet but persistent, whispering, take one step.
Okay, hang on. That sounds nice, inspirational, but isn't that just spiritual encouragement? If I quit my job today and take one step toward an invisible business plan, the road doesn't magically appear, right? What's the practical mechanism here for the traveler? How does the stone appear?
That's a really vital challenge, and the sources aren't talking about literal magic stones appearing out of thin air. Not really. They define the stone appearing as the universe, or reality, or maybe just circumstance, revealing the next critical piece of information.
Oh, okay. Like the connection you didn't know you needed, or the resource that suddenly becomes available, or just the clarity that only comes from actually being in motion.
Precisely. The mechanism is that action generates data. You cannot know the necessary next step if you're just standing still, staring at the problem from the starting line.
Yeah.
You learn by doing.
Right. So the traveler acts, puts their foot forward, and then the stone appears beneath it, solid, safe, real. It's the commitment to just the next few feet that turns an overwhelming, endless gap into a manageable step-by-step task.
Exactly. Another step, another stone appears. And the fundamental revelation here is that the bridge wasn't ever finished, waiting to be found. It built itself one step at a time. But, and this is key, only in response to the traveler's commitment to movement. The road was always waiting, yes, but it was contingent upon action.
If we connect this to the bigger picture then, the implication is pretty powerful. Many people never cross their personal bridges because they wait for that entire perfect plan. They stay stuck, imagining all the dangers, never realizing the road was there all along, just waiting for them to take that first step.
The lesson here is that courage, in this context, isn't about not being afraid. It's the willingness to move while afraid. The traveler who went forward discovered that, yes, courage creates paths and action builds bridges.
So the faith required isn't in seeing the whole end destination clearly laid out. It's simply trusting the stone beneath your foot right now, that immediate next step.
Exactly. So we've discussed two powerful, sustained forms of action here, planting warmth, like Omar did, and moving forward, like the traveler. And both stories highlight that waiting for guarantees, whether it's for immediate financial return or for complete certain plans, that waiting is the guaranteed pathway to stagnation, to failure even.
So what does this all mean for you, the listener, maybe staring at your own gaps and opportunities right now? These sources really push back hard against the idea of passive expectation. Whether it's about kindness or career progress, the result seems to be built through movement, through planting those seeds.
Yeah, the sources suggest a kind of duality in our efforts, don't they? The Omar story teaches us to focus on the long-term system of giving without worrying about the immediate payoff, building those unseen resources. While the traveler's story teaches us to focus on the immediate, tiny unit of action required right now, the action that reveals the path forward, dismissing the impossible scale of the overall goal for a moment.
Okay, let's try and synthesize these two key takeaways one last time, focusing on how you might apply them. First, karma is a seed. Invest in that non-transactional, consistent kindness. It returns later, often when you're weakest, providing unexpected resources, maybe advocates.
Right. And second, uncertainty is your fuel, not your stop sign. Don't wait for certainty. The next necessary piece of information, the next resource, it only appears when you commit to taking the current step. You build clarity through action.
And here's a beautiful synthesis, maybe. The traveler's reward was the path itself, the growing certainty that movement provides. Omar's reward was the rebuilding of his foundation, the certainty that sustained giving provides in a different way. Both were built by the individual's choice to move, to act.
That's a great way to put it. And the beauty of this is often retrospective, isn't it? When you look back, the sources say, every single stone you walked on will be proof. Proof that you were never as far from your destination as you thought. And undeniable evidence of what you were always capable of achieving.
Yeah, the path that once looked terrifyingly impossible becomes the undeniable evidence of your own courage, your own action. Don't wait for the bridge to be fully built. You have to start walking.
Absolutely. This deep dive has really shown us that the path unfolds only through the action you commit to today. Whether it's that quiet action of kindness or the more visibly courageous action of movement.
The road is truly built for those who walk it, and your progress is just a reflection of your willingness to commit to that immediate next step.
So here's the final provocative thought we want to leave you with, something to maybe mull over. If the bridge doesn't truly exist until you start building it with your own courage, step by step, what necessary action are you delaying today, right now, because you're still waiting to see the whole path?